Okay, so I've got my out of frame for the window with the mullions, but now, looking at the photo of the window I'm trying to make, I need the sash panels to finish it off, and you can see they're all basically identical. If we ignore this little piece here that I've forgotten the name for, but that does have a name, the piece there that's only on the upper sash, I'm going to leave that off initially. So we're just going to do the sash panels then as identical panels, because without that little piece there, this one would be basically the same as the bottom. There are some other differences. You'll see the bottom sash has a thicker bottom style, but again, the first setup I'll just do it the same as the top one, and then later we can look at making variations. So, back into Revit. I've got the file there which is going to host my sash, but I'm not going to make the sash here. I'm going to make another family file. So I'm going to go to the main menu, New, Family, and here, this is where it's going to be a little bit tricky, because if you'd started this one, you would have begun with metric window, which is obviously a really good template for window families. But that one will come with a wall. I don't want my sash to go into a wall. I want the sash to go into this family. So instead, I'm going to start with another template. I'm going to start with metric generic model. This one here, not metric generic model wall based or any of the other metric generic model options, just metric generic model with nothing else in the name. Bottom of the list, hopefully. Then, this is the really tricky part, you can go into family category and parameters, which is the button in the create panel in the group of 4, it's the top right there. And you can change the category to Windows. I won't explain all the reasons for doing that, but that's a good way of starting. Now I want to make a basic setup for my sash. So you can see I went to make an extrusion, but I had to stop myself because I'm going to set up some reference planes instead, as you should normally to set up the main dimension. So with the reference plane tool, I'm going to draw a reference plane, a vertical reference plane, either side of the center line that you're given initially. So a new reference plane either side. Then I'm going to draw a dimension going from one side, so one reference plane that I drew on the left, to the other reference plane on the right, and place it above. Then I'm going to go and draw another dimension starting the same way on the first reference plane, but this time going to the middle, and then over to the right again before placing it above somewhere. That's fine. Now, this is where I can show you some really good tricks. I'm going to set the dimension measuring all of those reference planes at the bottom there to equals. Now, what you'll see, if you try to change that 2000, it may not let you. See how now it's not letting me even select that number. If I go to do it, it won't work. So I'm going to show you how to make it work. You need to add a parameter. When you select that dimension at the top, you can go to, oh, now here, they've changed it around. With older versions, you would have seen there was a button here to add parameters, but it can, with 2017, come up here instead. So just watch out for that. If it's not on the options bar, just look up here, and you'll see that we actually have a list of parameters already established, and the one I want there is width. I'm just going to select that. Now watch what happens. This is where you've got to just think a bit about how Revit works. If I select the line, I can't change that dimension still. But if I select the dimension, what do you know? I can. So normally that wouldn't work. Right, so you've probably been forcing yourself not to do that. And normally that's right. If you select a dimension, you can't just go and change the number. But when you make it into a parameter, you can. Just one of those little tricks in Revit. and it's really useful. So I can just here type in 1500. Notice how it stays centered. So both of these will come in, and that's what I want. So that's the first step, just getting that basic set up so you can set the overall dimensions. I'll get a reference plane going the other way. Now this one, I'm not going to be setting up as much because I don't want this to be adjustable. So I'm going to make it 50 mil thickness, the sash, which is a bit thicker than it would be in real life, but so let's just make it 40 actually, because now I think about it, that'll work better. So I'm going to make this 20, and then I'll make the one at the bottom 20 as well. Yeah, 40 should be about right. So then I'm going to draw a dimension, again measuring from the bottom reference plane to the middle, then to the top, place it to the side, and then just straight away I'm going to lock those. So that's a fixed dimension, I don't need to change that. And now I'm going to make the window sash. Has everyone got a bit of time, or do you want me to finish up and continue next week? Yep. Hello? Sorry? You okay? Just stay a bit longer? Okay, so I'll just go a bit longer. So now I'm just going to make some extrusions. Now, you'll find sometimes people do these things with sweeps and other things, but something like a window you can usually make just with a collection of extrusions. So clicking on the extrusion tool there, I'm going to go to the pick tool, pick line, sorry, in the draw panel there. I'm going to turn the lock option on. And then I'm just going to click on the reference planes I've already made, and notice it'll come up straight away locked to them. So that saves you going and locking things later. So then I'm going to use trim to corner and just join those lines together to make a rectangle. Then I'm going to finish it and have a look at it in 3D view. There's nothing there. That's normal when you go into a family file first up. The 3D view is looking in a silly place, but if you right click and go zoom to fit, it'll zoom to whatever you've made. So I'm just going to go over flexing again because you wouldn't have seen it maybe with the previous videos yet if you haven't watched those. Below the family category and parameters button, you've got family types, which is actually one of the most important tools when you're working in a family. That option there, family types, brings up the parameters, like the one I've set, which is the width. So there it's 1500. I'm going to go and try to change that to a different value. Let's make it 1000. To see that change without clicking OK, that's when you can use apply. If you've been wondering why you have that apply button, for situations like this. So it's changing, which means my extrusion is tied to the parameters properly. Now I want to make the height adjustable. So to do that, I've got to go to an elevation view. I'm going to go to the front elevation. Again, it's looking in a silly place, so I'm going to right click and zoom to fit, and now I can see it. So to get the height to be adjustable, the easiest way, or one of the easiest ways, is to make a reference plane in this elevation view that's above the ground somewhere. If you're thinking of making levels, you can't make levels in a family, so you have to use reference planes in place of levels, but they work fine as levels. Now I'm going to draw a dimension from ref level, which is the bottom of our window, sash, up to that reference plane, put it over to the side. Then I'm going to select that extrusion and click and drag to snap it onto that reference plane, and then you'll get the lock symbol, and I can lock it there so that it's attached to that reference plane. And now finally I can select the dimension, and then in the labels there you'll see that you have a height parameter established as well, so I can simply choose height. Now we've got another parameter that is defining the shape of that extrusion or the size of it. So again, I'll just do this in the 3D view so you can see it happening. As I go into family types, I can make changes to both of those values. So I'll try and make the height 1,000, and at the same time I'll change the width to 2,000 or something, just another value. Apply, both working. So let's go 500 for the height and 1,000 for the width. Again, working fine. Okay, and so that's called flexing. In other words, testing the parameters. And it's important that you do that at each stage as you establish those parameters, because you can find sometimes that you'll do something wrong or just maybe tie things together in a way that won't work, and you won't know. If you go ahead and do the next thing, you'll find that some parameters you needed to set up earlier weren't chained together properly, and the whole thing will just fall apart. So it's really important that you test it as you go, make sure it's all working before you go on to the next stage. So the next stage will be to put in the opening for the glass and the glazing bars, but we'll do that next time. So let's show you that. So obviously we've got those small panels of glass, and do you know, well, I've just told you what these things are called? Oh, I just told you, we didn't hear. These are panes. The whole thing is a sash. Those bits of timber in between the glass are glazing bars. So, yep, glazing bars were common until fairly recently, actually, because glass couldn't be much bigger than that until recently. And by recently, I mean, 100 years ago is when they started to make bigger sheets of glass on a large scale. So, again, buildings in this area, you'll see those glazing bars all the time, and they're a fairly easy thing to do in Revit, so I'll show you how to model that next time. So that's plenty, I think, to keep you going. So try to work through the videos that show the other part of the window, and then get up to the point where you've at least got a family file for the window frame, and then a family file for the sash. And we'll continue with that next week. And also the other openings there, I could show you some tricks for those, using curtain walls as well. And maybe just have a good look at the building. There might be some openings I haven't thought about that'll be important for your design, so we can look at those too. So things like the garage doors, I know a lot of people have been looking at those, but then some of these fire escapes and other things could be useful as well. But again, we can have a look at those things next.